Hello, everyone, to a very special broadcast of Kvetching with Adam and Jared. This doesn't fall under either our normal podcast or even our lightning podcast episode because it's the end of the year and it's a special time for the Jewish Studies Zionist Network and for Adam and me at the end of the year because, tell everyone, Adam.
Because this is the time of the year that we award the Schmegegge of the Year award to the person who is most qualified for that honor.
The Schmegeggiest person, if you will.
The Schmegeggiest person, yeah.
Which a lot of people don't know what a Schmegegge is. It's ostensibly a Yiddish word, but most scholars agree that it's an American Yiddish word, that it doesn't trace back to the old country.
Probably Amber Yiddish, yeah.
Yeah. So therefore, we have to, to define it, we have to use an American Yiddishist who's not necessarily, deeply involved in historical roots. And everyone knows that that person is the great Leo Rostin.
So let's consult Leo Rostin. I happen to have it right here, The Joys of Yiddish.
Everybody has The Joys of Yiddish sitting nearby. I mean, it's a given that every Jewish household, that in the Jewish Book of Wine. Of course.
It belongs as a reference book alongside your dictionary, your Chumash. Yeah. It's got to be sitting there. All right.
And your official Polish joke book, right? I mean, that's something that all Jews seem to have too. All right, let's go. Let's hear a definition of the Schmegegge.
All right. So he has three definitions: an unadmirable, petty person, a maladroit, untalented type, a sycophant, a schlepper, a whiner, a drip. Also used to describe a lot of hot air, baloney, a cockamamie story, as in, don't give me that Schmegegge. So I think we've sufficiently, so he also goes on to say, I think of a Schmegegge as a cross between a Schlemazel and a Schlemiel, or even between a Nudnik and a Nebek.
He uses, it's a Nebish, isn't it? A Nebish, not a Nebek?
Nebish, yeah.
He uses a hell of a lot of Yiddish words to define one Yiddish word, which is interesting, of course. But my favorite line in there was the one that preceded a whiner and a drip. What was it?
I closed it now, so.
Oh, no, I want to hear it again.
Oh, all right. Between a whiner and a drip, a maladroit, untalented type.
But then it went on to say something about a whiner and a drip. Three words in succession. It was a great phrase.
A sycophant, a schlepper, a whiner, and a drip.
A schlepper, a whiner, and a drip.
But a nebish doesn't really apply, because isn't a nebish just like some kind of wimpy man?
It's a nerd. I would that's the word that I think of when I think of I also think of the word lemichka, which is I can't find in virtually no Yiddish dictionary. It's also an American invention. It's a very rich language.
What about Kuni Lummel?
Is that Yiddish?
Yeah, I think so, isn't it?
What does it mean exactly?
It's a dunce.
Okay, I gotta look that one up. You used it a couple of times on the show, so
in fact, there was the famous Israeli film Kuni Lummel.
Right.
Yeah.
It doesn't. I know Yiddish. I mean, I'm not an expert in the language, but it doesn't sound like one that I've heard much either in American casual conversation or that I've seen, in works that date from the old country. Of course, a lot of those words, do. Schlemiel and Schemazel have been around forever.
I think Laverne and Shirley made those words famous.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah. But Schlemazel is certainly used regularly in some of Sholem Aleichen's writings, so it's not an American invention.
It's true.
Yeah. Well, this is our lesson in Yiddish for everybody today, and I encourage everyone to read Leo Rostin's book if you haven't read it. Jackie Mason's How to Talk Jewish is also an incredible resource for that. And the fact that he's been canceled by the woke should make him even more appealing to our viewership. But enough of that. We have to get on with the award, the Schmegegge of the Year award. I should point out that we did think of having also a Twerp of the Year award this year. But then I sat down and I thought about it and I realized if we did Twerp of the Year, we'd be giving it to the same Twerp every single year because there is an official The Twerp. TM.
But at least we wouldn't have to write a new statement every year.
That's true.
Just the same one.
All right. Well, Twerp of the Year, you know who you are. Consider yourself awarded.
Yeah.
All right. So last year we gave the award for the first time, and I don't think we've mentioned that yet, and that was to Peter Beinart. And I think most of our viewers, all of our viewers, know who Peter Beinart is, so we really don't need to describe it. The statement can be found on the JSCN's website. Peter Beinart, in a manner of speaking, accepted the award on Twitter, but then stopped engaging with us, which is unfortunate. But he did accept it, and that's important.
He happily and gladly accepted it. Yeah,
absolutely. So, there's the interesting thing is, though, Beinart, we've known for years that he's a Schmegegge. I mean, there's no great mystery there. Everything he does is so Schmegegge-like. He does not really have the intellectual depth that this year's recipient does. I've never been impressed by Beinart's writings. He seems to be, just a one-man roadshow who goes with the wind wherever the leftist Jewish opinion seems to be riding, and he keeps writing the same drivel over.
Even when I agreed with him more, he was still a Schmegegge.
Yeah, he's always been. Yeah. And even when I mentioned his name, my father has actually heard of him. And my father doesn't keep up with this contemporary Jewish stuff because he used to be on CNN. So, yeah, I don't think he thought of him much either.
I have a friend who encountered him on a kosher cruise.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Beinart keeps kosher?
Apparently.
Oh, okay. Well, that's interesting.
That's just what I've heard. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if I'd go on a kosher cruise. Maybe I'd go on a Jewish one, but I don't think I'd go on a kosher one. Being a single Jewish male, that is. But I'm not keeping kosher. In any case, we should really get on with our big announcement of this year's Schmegegge of the Year.
Should we do a drum roll?
Drum roll. And I present to you the trophy. Here it is. Well, that's who it is, Professor Omar Bartov. So who is this Omar Bartov that we have awarded a trophy to? We've
discussed him a lot on the show. We have we discussed him a lot on this podcast.
He has come up on the podcast, but in case viewers were not paying attention at the 40-minute mark of what might have been a long episode, Omar Bartov is, and I am not exaggerating this at all, one of the most important Holocaust historians of the previous generation. Right, the current generation, of course, are people in their 30s and 40s doing, all sorts of new and innovative stuff. But the previous generation, post Raoul Hilberg, were the people who really set up studies of the Holocaust in the United States. People like Saul Friedlander, Christopher Browning, people in Israel like Yehuda Bauer, people like Zygmunt Bauman and Omar Bartov. There's a lot of B's I've noticed in Holocaust studies. And people, of course, like Jeffrey Herf and our friend Norman Goda, who was on the show as well. Bartov has written quite a few books. One of them is considered to be foundational in the study of Nazi Germany and violence on the Eastern Front. It's called Barbarization of Warfare. And I have his book on genocide in a small Ukrainian town. Anatomy of Genocide, I think it's called, sitting on my desk. And given his current positions and misuse of the word genocide, I ain't going to be reading the book because I'm no longer convinced that Omar Bartov understands the word genocide. So what are Omar Bartov's sins? My colleague here, Adam, wrote out a beautiful statement, which will be up on JSCN's website right after this is broadcast. And, there were two main incidents this year. The first one is the elephant in the room, statement number 2, which we did dedicate an entire podcast to, I believe, right?
Yes, we did. We scrutinized it heavily.
Yeah. So do you remember what that podcast was called? Which one it was?
No, unfortunately, I don't.
Okay. Well, I encourage everyone to watch it.
That was the one that was directly after the October 7th attack.
Okay, yeah. So it occurred relatively early on in our podcast career. And the upshot, the main issue was, and it was clear that Bartov is the main promoter of it, whether he was the promoter of the first elephant in the room statement, which condemned Israel's current government in the most histrionic language imaginable. Which is fine, you can condemn Bibi all you want. There's nothing wrong with condemning a government, but it then went on to blame American Jewish billionaires for Jewish supremacy. I'm not sure he was the author. It seemed Lior Sternfeld was playing the driving role in that. But Bartov
also used the apartheid term, which I know you don't care to debate but I do.
I think it's a problem. I think it's fundamentally wrong, but I think it's entered the discourse, and at the same time, it's not in and of itself anti-Semitic in the way that Jewish supremacy is. Right?
Mhm.
There's
Right.
no legacy of anti-Semitism attached to the term apartheid, even though, yeah, it's offensive and it's unscholarly.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't call it anti-Semitic, except for
Right.
the fact that it holds Israel
Right.
to a
But
higher
whether
standard.
or not Bartov led that initiative, he was one of the first signers on the list.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm pretty sure he was involved. In any case, he's at the helm now. And the second statement, which I will not go into great detail about, but I'll just summarize the main issue. The first paragraph is beautiful. You know, it condemns Hamas, and it actually says Israel has the right to defend itself, and this is the most important phrase, has the right to pursue Hamas wherever they may be, which implies even beyond Gaza.
And then it continues to contradict itself by saying that Israel has no right to defend itself.
Yeah, it says an immediate ceasefire, release of all prisoners, blah, 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 everything the far left wants regarding Israel, right?
Mm-hmm.
So why that opening paragraph is there is a mystery. It's maybe to, cover their asses and look like they are, still pro-Israel, or maybe it's to delude people into signing it, because a lot of people just read, opening paragraphs and then don't actually follow through. But, the rest of it is a shanda. It got tons of signatures, and it absolutely makes no sense from a logical or a scholarly point of view.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the second issue is far more damaging, and that began with an op-ed in the New York Times. Probably in November it came out. It was a few weeks after. It was a
November 10th.
November 10th, right? And he has subsequently wrote far more op-eds and appeared on various TV shows, on web shows, propagating the view, which is that Israel is intending to commit genocide in Gaza.
The word is genocidal intent.
Yeah, genocidal intent.
He doesn't call it a genocide, but he calls
it's mathematically not a genocide yet. You can't possibly, I mean, that's just an empirical fact. It's not a genocide, but he said there's genocidal intent. What does this, very erudite and careful scholar use as evidence? A few offhanded comments from Bibi's government. That's it. What else does he have as evidence? The fact that Hamas only killed 1,200 people, whereas at the time of the writing of the op-ed, Israel had killed 10,000 people.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that clearly makes it more of a genocide than what Hamas is doing. Does he call Hamas genocidal or genocidal in intention? No, he doesn't. Not at all. He condemns them for their war crimes. And then there's your usual, but however, Israel has killed 10,000 more people with genocide.
And it's their stated goal. It's in their covenant from 1988 that this is what their intent is. And it's not just Zionists and Israelis, it's world Jewry.
It's ideological intent, much as Mein Kampf is Nazi ideological intent. There's no way getting around that. If Hamas hasn't done that, it's simply that they haven't had the means to do so. And we saw in this, forget even October 7th, the Second Intifada made it abundantly clear that Hamas wants to terrorize and obliterate as many Jews as possible. So the key problem here is the idea of intent. Now, has Israel killed a lot of civilians in Gaza? Absolutely. But the evidence keeps mounting about how Hamas embeds itself in civilian populations, building command centers underneath hospitals. Well, how are you supposed to not bomb a hospital if the command center is in the damn hospital? So I don't call that genocidal intent. Whether it's militarily a proper strategy, whether Israel should take greater measures to avoid having to bomb a hospital, fine, that's an open debate. Absolutely, I'm willing to have a conversation with someone about that, and I'm personally not going to take a position on it. But it's not genocidal intent. If Israel wanted to wipe the Palestinians out, they could have done so quite a few times after 1967. They could have also eliminated the 50% of the population in 1949 of Israel proper, who were Palestinians. And Israel has done no such thing. So it's absolutely absurd.
And today, if Israel wanted to commit a genocide against the Gazans, they could do it in 10 minutes.
Yeah, absolutely. There would be no problem there. right? It's not like Nazi Germany where you have to conquer Russia to pull off something like that, right? It's just so
All contained into a small geographic space. They could do it if they really wanted to. And because they haven't, that suggests to me that it is not genocidal intent.
And to quote everyone else in Bartov's camp, we are currently under Israel's most right-wing government in history. So if they're not even committing genocide, to accuse Israel of any sort of genocidal intent in toto over its existence, or at least since 1967, when, yes, it did start to expand with the construction of settlements, is just utterly absurd.
By the way, they're kind of wrong about it being the most right-wing government because it's not the same government anymore. Now there's a unity government, so there's centrist parties that are in it.
Right. But of course, the first elephant in the room statement came out before October 7th, right before
That's
the
right.
unity government.
Right. Yeah.
Now, I just want to, okay, two important points here. One, Beinart's always been a Schmegegge, so there's no great surprise with him winning the award, right? Omar Bartov was a respectable scholar, and he's done a complete 180 here, right? So it's very different than the award we gave out last year in that sense.
Right.
The other important point, and we really need to emphasize this, is how dangerous he is. Beinart's not dangerous; he's a Schmegegge, and he appears on a lot of news media, but
Omar Bartov is a well-respected public intellectual who is taken seriously by a lot of people in the media and on campuses and in the wider public.
Taken seriously on the subject of genocide.
Right.
So if he says, well, it's genocide, then why wouldn't people believe Omar Bartov? And he's well aware of this, and he's exploited.
In fact, the title of his article is "What I Believe as a Historian of Genocide."
Yeah. So this really makes him more of a Schmendrick than a Schmegegge, if we want to get technical about it. But we don't have a Schmendrick of the Year award. This is really, a big problem for a professional historian to do this. The other thing that he played a major role in authoring, I don't know if he was the author, but he was one of the principal signatories, was a condemnation of the exploitation of Holocaust memory by Israel, right? Invoking the Holocaust whenever, the Palestinians launched an attack, in the case of October 7th. Now, I teach courses on Holocaust memory, as well as, the Holocaust itself. Yes, Holocaust memory is exploited across the board in this country, by the right, by the left, by everybody. It's just part of our culture at this point. So thinking that Israel would be any different, which was a state founded upon the heels of the Holocaust, would be utterly absurd. But the irony of all this is that this very same camp is the camp that's, calling Israel genocidal, with a strong overlap with the people who do compare Israel to Nazi Germany. So how are they not responsible for exploiting Holocaust memory either?
Yeah, you're right.
So the whole thing is absurd. If anyone wants to read an academic response to Bartov, I highly recommend what Jeffrey Herf and Norman Goda have written. They have an article in Quillette, or however the hell it's pronounced. And they will lay out point by point what's wrong. But I think we captured the essence up here. So congratulations, Omar or Professor Bartov of Brown University. I will flash the image once again on the screen so everyone sees. And we can now say
he can now put this alongside all of his other academic accolades.
Yeah, he's won some prestigious awards for various books, and now you could say he's also been awarded the Schmegegge of the Year.
Right.
Well, we are signing off. We've got a very exciting episode coming up with Isabella Tabarovsky, which should be up in a few days after this recording. And it'll be on the Soviet roots of contemporary leftist anti-Semitism in the United States. A very important topic that needs to be studied a lot more than it has been.
I will have less to say on that topic.
Yeah, I actually have a big intro I need to give tomorrow, and I hope she's okay with that. But that's it for now. We are done. So this is Jared and Adam signing off.
Take care.
Congratulations, Omar.